Welcome back to The Life with the Browns. The gavel slams against the wood, thunder rolling through a courtroom frozen in silence. Every eye swings to Kody Brown, the man once celebrated as the proud father of America's most famous polygamous family. But tonight, there is no charm, no swagger, only a hollow stare. The whispers of the gallery grow louder, voices laced with pity, with outrage, with shock. For years, millions watched the Browns beam smiles into their living rooms. But behind those smiles were secrets, financial lies, betrayals, broken vows that dragged them into this very courtroom. The judge calls for order, but tension crushes the air. Kody fidgets in his seat, his hands clawing at the table. Behind him, his wives sit like fractured shadows of what once was. Meri, rigid, betrayed. Janelle, calm, unreadable. Christine, eyes glistening but refusing to break. And Robyn, the only legal wife, her very presence a lightning rod of tension. Each carries scars, each carries a truth. And tonight, those truths are no longer secrets. They are weapons. The prosecution rises. Their voice is sharp, each word cutting into Kody's image. They paint him not just as a failed husband, but as a deceiver, a manipulator, a man who drained the women who trusted him most. Secret accounts, hidden deeds, mysterious debts. Each accusation falls like another nail hammered into the coffin of a once unshakable empire. Kody's attorneys rise in protest, insisting this is no crime, only pain twisted into accusation. But then, gasps. The first witness approaches. Not a stranger. Not a wife, a child. His own flesh and blood. The voice is young, trembling, but unshakably true. He promised us security. But we lived in fear. We never knew what was truth and what was lies. The courtroom is stunned. Kody shifts in his chair, his eyes fixed downward, refusing to meet the gaze of the son or daughter who now condemns him before the world. His attorneys shout objections, but the judge silences them. For the first time, Kody's armor cracks. The weight grows heavier. Questions pour like thunder. Did Kody stash away money meant for his children? Did he manipulate property deeds to hide his empire? The walls seem to close in as Christine lifts her head. Their eyes meet, hers filled with fire, his with rage. No words are spoken, yet the silence between them screams louder than any testimony. This is no longer a trial of law. This is a trial of betrayal, of broken promises, of a family empire rotting from within. And the silence of the wives, once his protection, may now cost them everything. The judge bangs the gavel, calling recess, but the damage is already done. The storm has begun, and Kody Brown can feel it. His dynasty is collapsing piece by piece in front of the world. Mrs. Brown, didn't you confess in previous interviews that you got involved in shady cyber activity? The words hang heavy in the air, laced with accusation, piercing through the silence of the courtroom. Every head in the gallery turns toward Meri. Her expression darkens, her jaw stiffening, but her voice does not waver. Yes, she admits, quietly but firmly, I did, but that doesn't matter here. Because what Kody did was not born from loneliness, like mine. My mistakes came from isolation. His actions, they came from greed. The defense table stirs uneasily, attorneys fumbling with their papers, retreating from Meri's sudden boldness. The judge, his gavel pounding once against the echoing wood, calls for a recess, but the tension refuses to break. Reporters leap from their seats, rushing out into the corridors to type breaking headlines. Sister wives explode in court. Meri and Christine defy Kody. Cameras flash wildly as bailiffs usher fans and onlookers toward the exits. Inside, Kody sits unmoving, stone-faced, but his eyes betray him. His empire, his reputation, everything he has fought to protect for decades now teeters at the edge of collapse. Not because of enemies from outside, but because of the very women who once stood at his side. As the day closes, the judge issues a warning. Tomorrow will bring new witnesses, finance experts, perhaps even more family members. The words leave the courtroom humming with anticipation. What papers will be produced? What lies will be unmasked? The last shot of the session burns into the minds of those watching. Kody, standing stiffly at the defense table, his forehead glistening with sweat. Behind him, his wives sit like shadowed specters of judgment. No longer companions, no longer allies, but accusers. The fractures in the Brown family are no longer cracks. They are vast, unbridgeable canyons. And everyone knows, the truth is only just beginning to surface. If Christine and Meri's testimonies shook the foundation of the courtroom, what storm will erupt when Janelle steps forward? The next session promises more than bitterness, more than betrayal. It carries the potential to expose the evidence that could seal Kody's fate forever. The morning light seeps through the towering windows of the courthouse the following day. But there is nothing warm about it. Instead, it feels cold, merciless, unforgiving. The gallery fills again. Reporters, fans, even former admirers of the Brown family show, all waiting, breathless for the next blow. Yesterday, Christine and Meri ripped open the scars that Kody and Robyn had fought to keep hidden. Today, Janelle will take the stand, and with her she carries not just words, but proof. Hard evidence capable of turning whispers into irrefutable facts. Janelle enters the courtroom with steady, deliberate steps, her arms clutching a thick stack of folders against her chest. Where Christine had burned with fiery zeal, where Meri had bled with silent sorrow, Janelle radiates something different, serene purpose. Years of betrayal sit behind her eyes, but her posture is unyielding. She takes the oath, settles herself in the witness chair, and lays the folders neatly before her. Her voice is calm, measured, but beneath it lies a storm. The prosecutor wastes no time. Mrs. Brown, you were often referred to as the practical wife, the one who managed the finances. Can you explain to the court what your role was? Janelle nods, her gaze unwavering. Yes, I managed the day-to-day expenses. Bills, groceries, the children's needs. I didn't control everything, but I was responsible for what went in and what went out. The prosecutor leans in closer. And what did you find in those records, Mrs. Brown? The room holds its breath as Janelle slowly opens the first folder. The sound of rustling paper echoes through the silence like a drumbeat. At first, it was little things. Missing receipts. Withdrawals that didn't match what we'd spent. But over time, the gaps grew larger. Thousands of dollars, vanishing without explanation. And when I asked Kody, her voice hardens. He dismissed me. He told me I was overthinking, that the money was safe. But it wasn't safe. It was hidden. The prosecutor lifts a bank statement from her folder, presenting it to the jury. Their eyes widen. Numbers leap off the page. Huge withdrawals, unexplained and secret. These transactions, Janelle continues, were not family expenses. They went into accounts that none of us were allowed to access. And the only names on those accounts were Kody's and Robyn's. A gasp ripples through the gallery. Robyn stiffens, her face draining of color. Kody squirms, his lips pressed into a thin line. The prosecutor presses harder. Mrs. Brown, explain the importance of these withdrawals. Janelle does not falter. They aligned with property purchases, land in Flagstaff, houses in Robyn's name. We believed we were building a family compound. But in reality, it was a funnel. Our money, our assets, diverted into places none of us could touch. The jury leans in, pens scribbling furiously. The evidence stacks higher with each document Janelle produces. Contracts, emails, hidden signatures. One by one, she lays the truth bare. Kody erupts in protest, his voice rising, accusing them all of knowing, of agreeing. The judge slams the gavel, warning him of contempt. Janelle's eyes cut across the room, pinning Kody in place. We didn't agree, Kody. We trusted you. And you betrayed us. The courtroom trembles with the weight of her words. And as the day winds to a close, one truth becomes undeniable. Kody Brown, once untouchable, is now a man cornered. Tomorrow, it will be Robyn's turn to take the stand. And the world waits to see, will she defend him or destroy him? The courtroom was silent when Robyn finally spoke. Her voice, faint but clear, carried across the packed gallery. I was sometimes the one Kody relied on, she confessed. The words hung in the air like smoke, thick and impossible to ignore. He trusted me with paperwork. He told me I was better at putting things in order. She swallowed hard, her eyes darting toward the defense table where Kody sat stiff and red-faced. Sometimes he'd take me into meetings. Sometimes not, but yes, I knew more than the rest. A ripple of murmurs rolled through the gallery. Journalists leaned forward. Spectators craned their necks. Kody's attorneys shifted in their seats, exchanging nervous glances. In just a few words, Robyn had confirmed what Christine and Janelle had been saying for years, that she was given privileges no other wife had ever known. The prosecutor wasted no time. He stepped closer, his voice sharp and cutting. Mrs. Brown, do you know about the secret accounts? About the properties purchased in your name? Robyn's throat tightened. Her lips trembled. Finally, she forced a single word out. Yes. The gallery exploded with whispers. A storm of gasps and shocked murmurs filled the room until the judge's gavel came crashing down. "Order!" he barked. The chaos subsided, but the damage was done. The truth had begun to leak into daylight. The prosecutor pressed forward. "Did you know these accounts were hidden from the other wives?" Robyn's answer came slowly, almost inaudibly. "No, not at first." A pause. Her voice dropped even lower. "Afterwards." "Yes, I knew." Christine let out a soft gasp and covered her mouth with her hand. Janelle shut her eyes tightly as if the confirmation had sliced through her last thread of hope. Meri sat frozen, her face pale and drained of color, unreadable but undeniably broken. The prosecutor's tone grew heavier. "Mrs. Brown, did you ever ask yourself why Mr. Brown put these homes in your name?" Robyn's hands shook on the witness stand. She wrung them together until her knuckles turned white. "I did," she whispered. "I asked him if it was right. He told me it was temporary, that once things settled down, everything would be shared. But the longer it went on, the more I knew it was never going to be shared at all." Another eruption in the gallery. This time the whispers had venom. It was no longer suspicion, it was certainty. Kody had funneled assets into Robyn's name, claiming it was for the family, when in truth it was only for himself. But then something unexpected happened. Robyn's voice cracked, and for the first time, there was regret. The prosecutor seized on it. "Mrs. Brown, are you telling this court that Mr. Brown misled you as well?" Her eyes brimmed with tears. Her breath caught. "Yes," she said finally. "I defended him for years. I believed him. I thought I was protecting our family. But the truth is, I was only protecting his lies." The gallery gasped as one. All eyes shot toward Kody. His face turned crimson with rage. His attorney leapt to his feet. "Objection. Speculation, opinion." The judge didn't hesitate. Overruled. The prosecutor moved in for the kill. "Mrs. Brown, tell the jury how Mr. Brown justified his behavior to you." Robyn's voice wavered. "He said the family couldn't handle the truth. He said if the others knew how much money was coming in, how much was being moved, they would turn against him. He told me it was better to keep control. And for years, I convinced myself he was right. Until I couldn't anymore. The silence that followed was deafening. Even the reporters, pens poised mid-scribble, froze in stunned disbelief. But the defense wasn't finished. They rose sharply, their words cutting through the stillness. "Mrs. Brown, you say you were lied to. But isn't it true that you profited the most? Didn't you live in the largest house? Didn't you enjoy more financial security than any of the other wives?" Robyn did not flinch. Her voice came steady, almost defiant. "Yes, I lived in the largest house. I had stability, but every day I looked at that house, I felt guilt. I knew Christine's children didn't have the same. Every time I signed papers with Kody, I knew Meri and Janelle were being kept in the dark. I told myself it was temporary, but it never was. Yes, I gained, but I was being used." The defense stumbled, desperate to recover. "Isn't it true you're only distancing yourself from Mr. Brown because the evidence against him is so damning?" For the first time, Robyn's eyes flashed with fire. Her voice cut through the courtroom. "Do you think I wanted this? Do you think I wanted my children to live under this shadow?" The prosecutor pounced again. "Your Honor, the prosecution calls Dr. Elaine Porter." A solemn woman took the stand. Her presence was calm, almost clinical, but her words cut like a scalpel. "Most of the Brown children," she explained, "suffered from what we call emotional parentification. They assumed the role of keeping their mother safe, of maintaining harmony, of filling the gap their father left. That is not a responsibility for children. It is a suffocating, cruel burden." The gallery fell silent. Each word was another blade carving away at Kody's carefully constructed persona. The prosecutor leaned forward. "In your expert opinion, doctor, was this household dynamic healthy?" Dr. Porter's answer was swift, decisive. "No, it was poisonous. The imbalance of love, of resources, it caused long-term psychological damage." The defense lunged to counter. "Doctor, isn't it true that all big families face favoritism, conflict, even neglect sometimes, without intent?" Dr. Porter's eyes narrowed into daggers. "There is a difference between mistakes and patterns. This was not the chaos of a big family. This was deliberate. A household torn apart by calculated imbalance." The defense faltered, visibly shaken. The prosecutor's voice rang out. "The prosecution calls Dr. Henry Lell, forensic analyst." A man with stern eyes and a thick stack of files approached the stand. He adjusted his glasses before speaking. "We reviewed 10 years of financial records. What we found was not disorganization, it was a system. Family money siphoned into private accounts. Accounts solely controlled by Mr. Brown and often tied directly to properties in Robyn Brown's name. Whispers tore through the gallery again until the gavel crashed. "Order!" the judge roared. The prosecutor pressed. "And what of the other wives? Were their needs met?" Dr. Lell shook his head. "No. Records show repeated instances where Meri, Janelle, and Christine asked for money, for medical bills, tuition, groceries, and were denied. Meanwhile, money left the joint accounts for luxury vacations, jewelry, real estate." Gasps echoed across the room. Christine gripped her chair so tightly her knuckles blanched. Janelle shook her head, muttering under her breath. Meri sat rigid, lips pressed into a thin line. Robyn's face was frozen, her hand clutching the table like it was the only thing keeping her grounded. The prosecutor's voice was ice. So 3 families suffered while 1 flourished. Dr. Lell's answer was blunt. "Correct. The financial record is undeniable." The defense tried one last maneuver. "Couldn't this just be mismanagement? Poor bookkeeping?" Dr. Lell turned to the jury, his tone cutting. "Mismanagement is messy. This was precise. This was deliberate. Money doesn't move in one direction by accident." The defense collapsed back into their chairs. Finally, the prosecutor stood tall. Our last witness, Dr. Amanda Reyes, trauma expert. A young woman with piercing eyes and a thick binder approached the stand. Her presence was calm, but there was no mistaking the weight of what she carried. "I interviewed several of the Brown children," she said softly. "What I found was consistent with survivors of chronic emotional neglect." The prosecutor gestured gently. "Doctor, can you explain?" She nodded. "These children described feeling invisible. They were told to stay quiet, to never question decisions, to accept that they mattered less. That kind of message doesn't fade. It follows them into adulthood. It shapes their self-worth, their relationships, their identity." The courtroom was still. Even the judge leaned forward, shaken. Dr. Reyes continued. "What disturbed me most was the language. These children repeated their father's exact words, about loyalty, about obedience, about earning affection. That is psychological conditioning. That is abuse." The room gasped as one. Even the reporters dropped their pens. The prosecutor's voice rose, hammering the final blow. "In your professional judgment, Dr. Reyes, was this a healthy household?" Dr. Reyes, "Was this a healthy household?" The air inside the courtroom feels suffocating, heavy with anticipation. When the prosecutor asked the question that cut straight to the core, "Dr. Reyes, did Mr. Brown's behavior inflict psychological damage on his children?" Her answer comes without hesitation, her voice crisp and unwavering. "Yes, extreme and enduring." The words hang like smoke, choking the oxygen out of the room. A wave of whispers sweeps across the gallery. Journalists scramble like vultures, hands flying across keyboards, desperate to craft headlines that will travel faster than lightning. Some mutter, "Abuse confirmed." "Sister wives home exposed." The defense rises quickly, voices laced with a trembling hope. "Dr. Reyes," one of Kody's lawyers begins, "isn't it possible these children exaggerated? That resentment, anger, or perhaps even manipulation from their mothers colored their stories?" The room waits in silence. Dr. Reyes leans forward, her eyes like steel. When she speaks, her voice is measured, precise, like a scalpel cutting flesh. Resentment does not breed identical language patterns. Resentment does not fabricate financial records. Resentment does not etch trauma markers into a child's psyche. What I discovered is not an exaggeration. It is truth. Her words slice the defense into silence. Their shoulders sag. They are out of weapons, out of excuses. The judge calls a recess, but no one in the gallery relaxes. The tension does not fade, it thickens. All eyes turn toward Kody Brown. The man who once thrived under the camera's lights now sits hunched, almost unrecognizable. His face flushed red, his jaw tight with rage and humiliation. He shifts, looking left and right, as if searching for an ally. But the wives avert their eyes, the children look broken. The experts remain cold and unflinching. His empire, the image he crafted for years, is disintegrating in real time, exposed before millions. Just when it seems the day is over, the prosecutor stands once more. His voice is steady, his words deliberate, yet they fall like ice. "Your Honor, tomorrow we will present secret recordings, conversations between Mr. Brown and his family members. These recordings will verify in his own voice the very patterns the experts have testified about today. The truth is no longer just their testimony. The truth is his voice." The gallery erupts, gasps, screams. Reporters sprint for the exits, fumbling phones into their ears, barking headlines into microphones. Kody slams his fist onto the defense table, roaring, "This is a setup!" "You're twisting my words." The judge's gavel cracks like thunder. "Mr. Brown, one more outburst and you'll be held in contempt." For the first time, Kody falls silent, but his silence is not defiance. It is fear. His mask is crumbling. The next morning, the courtroom feels colder. The jury leans forward, tense. Even the reporters are still, pens poised, as if knowing history is about to be made. The prosecutor steps forward. "Your Honor, the prosecution presents Exhibit 47, a set of verified audio recordings from Mr. Kody Brown." A murmur rolls through the gallery. Kody shifts in his seat, restless, sweat beading his forehead. His lawyer leans in to whisper, but Kody shakes his head violently, his eyes burning with rage. The lights dim slightly. A hush falls. Then the first recording crackles into life. Kody's voice fills the courtroom, unmistakable, domineering, venomous. "I'm sick of spending money on everybody else. Robyn's family has to take priority. The rest of you need to learn to take care of yourselves." Gasps explode across the room. Christine's hand flies to her chest. Janelle covers her mouth in horror. Meri closes her eyes, her face pale as bone. Robyn sits frozen, as if her blood has turned to ice. Kody leaps to his feet, shouting, "That's taken out of context!" The judge's gavel slams. "Sit down, Mr. Brown." The second clip plays. "Respect is not given. If my children can't be loyal to me, they don't deserve my help. Robyn's children respect me, so they get my assistance. The others can fend for themselves." The jury squirms, visibly shaken. A reporter drops his pen. Even Kody's lawyer looks pale, rattled. Clip 3. His tone is sharp, cruel. Christine needs to stop complaining about money. She chose her fate when she left. "I have one wife now, and that's Robyn. The rest are just history." Christine gasps openly, tears streaming down her face. The gallery murmurs like a rising storm. Then the fourth, a colder, crueler voice. "Meri ought to thank me for keeping her around as long as I did. She was a drag. If she thinks she's owed anything, she's delusional." Meri sits unmoving, her eyes empty, her lips pressed into a thin line. She has waited her whole life to hear him admit this. And finally, the most damning of all. Kody's voice, soft, intimate, dripping poison. "If the kids want my love, they'd better choose sides. If they choose Christine or Janelle, they don't choose me. That's the bargain. Loyalty is everything. Without it, they're nothing to me." The courtroom goes silent. Not a cough, not a shuffle. Just silence. Christine sobs openly. Janelle shakes her head, her hands clenched tight. Robyn looks ghostly, her body swaying as if she might faint. The children lower their heads, shattered by the sound of their father's betrayal. The prosecutor waits, letting the silence suffocate the room before finally speaking. "This is coercion. This is emotional blackmail. This is abuse." Kody slams his fist on the table, screaming, "This is all twisted! You're destroying me!" The judge slams the gavel furiously. "Mr. Brown, enough!" The defense stammers weakly, trying to suggest the recordings were spliced. But the prosecutor cuts them down cold. These tapes were authenticated by 2 separate forensic experts. Every word you heard was real. Every sentence was his. The defense collapses into their seats, defeated. The jury looks shaken, some visibly disturbed. The gallery buzzes like a hive. Reporters bolt for the doors, already scripting headlines that will explode across the nation. Kody Brown destroys himself, in his own words. For years, Kody thrived in the spotlight. But now that same spotlight has burned him alive. His empire, his family, his reputation, it has all turned to ash, buried by his own voice. Buried by his own voice. Brown patriarch caught on tape. Courtroom shockwave and sister wives trial. Kody sits back in his chair, red-faced, out of breath. He curses under his breath, but everyone within earshot can tell the anger churning within him. The wives turn away from his look. Christine sobs into a tissue. Janelle hugs her. Meri is silent, blankly staring off into space. Robyn appears shattered, praying under her breath. But in the final moments before the session ends, the prosecutor rises once again. His closing remarks hit the room like thunder. Tomorrow, we're going to introduce the money trail that's directly tied to these recordings. Evidence that Mr. Brown didn't talk about cronyism. He practiced it. Bank transfers, deeds, contracts, and when we get into that evidence, the public will have no doubt left. This is not a dysfunctional family. This is fraud, manipulation, and betrayal on a scale the public never dreamed. Lel turns a page. Household purchases, high-end cars, and remodeling, all attributed only to Robyn's home. For instance, in 2018, $250,000 was taken days before a deed was filed for Robyn's new residence. In 2019, another $80,000 went toward remodeling, not toward family dwellings, but towards Robyn's home. The gallery erupts and whispers. The judge bangs the gavel. Order, order in the court. The prosecutor continues. And what of the other wives? Lel shakes his head. Documentation reveals several instances in which Meri, Janelle, and Christine asked for financial aid for necessities, medical expenses, education, even groceries. These were denied or ignored. Robyn's family, meanwhile, received ongoing funding. Christine wipes at tears. "That's just exactly what I lived," she whispers, her voice cracking. The prosecutor's voice becomes stern. "So, Dr. Lel, in your professional judgment, was this financial mismanagement or intentional preferential treatment?" "Intentional," Lel answers firmly. "The transfers are too regular, the pattern too obvious. This was not random. This was intentional." The defense hurries to regain footing. "Dr. Lel, isn't it conceivable that Mr. Brown gave Robyn's household preference because she was his lawful wife? Maybe there were legal responsibilities." Lel interrupts him abruptly. "Financial neglect by other wives and children is not excused by legal obligation. The joint accounts were being paid by joint incomes. They were everyone's. Mr. Brown treated them as if they were his and one wife's alone." The defense stumbles, beads of sweat appearing on his forehead. The prosecutor advances once more. "Your Honor, we would like to enter into evidence. Exhibits 52 to 67, bank statements, wire transfers, and property deeds directly linking these monies to Mr. Brown's behavior." The judge nods. Accepted. The clerk distributes the jury with thick folders. They review the pages, their faces changing from intrigue to astonishment to outrage. The prosecutor goes on, "Ladies and gentlemen, in your hands are the checks of betrayal. Every word, every figure, every transfer is another cut in this family's history." The tension becomes thick. Reporters write madly, their headlines already in draft. $1.30 million redirected to Robyn's home. Paper trail validates Brown family claims. But the prosecution goes on. Lel turned to Exhibit 61. Lel pushes up his glasses. Yes, this letter indicates a wire transfer of $150,000 transferred from the joint account to a private account in Mr. Brown's name. Days later, that amount was used to buy a luxury car registered in Robyn Brown's name alone. Robyn hides her mouth, tears welling. Kody shakes his head wildly. "That car was for the family," he bellows. The judge bangs the gavel. "Mr. Brown, shut up." The prosecutor's eyes are narrowed. "For the family? If so, why is the registration in Robyn? Brown's name only?" The courtroom erupts into a stunned silence. The prosecutor continues, Exhibit 64. In 2020, during the peak of the pandemic, money was withdrawn for so-called emergency family needs. That money, $95,000, was traced to the down payment on another house. Not for Christine, not for Janelle, not for Meri, but once more for Robyn's family. Christine shakes her head in shock, whispering, "I begged him for help, then begged." The prosecutor addresses the jury again. While some of the children did not receive medical attention, while wives did not have enough to buy food, while debts accumulated in 3 homes, one home prospered. The jury appears shaken, turning the pages back, but then comes the biggest bombshell of all. The prosecutor clears his throat. "Dr. Lel, explain Exhibit 67. Lel's voice is calm, but the words fall like bombs. This exhibit demonstrates an offshore account in the Cayman Islands which was opened in Mr. Brown's name. More than $400,000 was deposited in this account within 5 years. None of the other wives knew about its existence. The courtroom erupts into pandemonium. Gasps, cries, reporters racing to write breaking news. Christine buries her face in her hands. Janelle clutches the table, trembling with anger. Meri is blank as if the last thread of hope within her has been broken. Robyn is appalled, muttering, "I didn't know." Kody springs out of his seat. "That's a lie. That's made up. I never." The judge bangs the gavel. "Mr. Brown, sit down or I will hold you in contempt." Kody thumps back into his chair, his face flush with anger. The prosecutor's voice pierces the uproar. Ladies and gentlemen, what you see before you is not favoritism. It is not neglect. This is fraud on a grand scale. Money that was the family's stashed abroad. Money that could have paid for children's futures, wives' necessities, family protection. Instead, it was diverted, hidden, and hoarded. The defense is one nervously rummaging through papers, but no objection arises. There is nothing more to say. The judge raps the gavel again, calling for order. The room gradually quiets, but the gravity of what's been done lingers in the air. The prosecutor lands his knockout punch of the day. Your Honor, today's evidence is complete. Tomorrow we'll have witnesses who will describe for you the human toll of this treachery. The debt collectors, the landlords, the banks. The jury has heard the money trail. Tomorrow they'll hear the consequences. And when they do, there will be no question. Mr. Brown didn't merely disappoint his family. He left them behind for profit. The gallery gasps once more. The wives sit silently, shattered, but vindicated. The children stare in wide-eyed horror. And Kody, for the first time in weeks, he appears frightened. Truly frightened. His empire isn't just cracking, it's imploding. They say that numbers never lie. And here in black and white, the truth has been laid bare. Millions diverted, families disregarded, lives betrayed. Kody Brown constructed an empire, a family, but behind the veil, he constructed a kingdom of lies. And tomorrow, the world will witness the price of that kingdom, paid in blood, tears, and shattered lives. The courtroom is more crowded than ever. Following yesterday's dramatic offshore account revelation, media filled the courthouse, camera lights popping, headlines blaring. Everyone wants to know the same thing. If Kody Brown actually drained millions, who was the loser? The prosecutor speaks in a slow, measured tone. Your Honor, the jury has seen the figures. They've looked at the books. Today, they will hear from those who experienced the impact. These aren't relatives with personal agendas. These are strangers, landlords, banks, lenders, individuals who had to work with the wreckage that Mr. Brown left. The judge acquiesces. The first witness is brought into the courtroom. A middle-aged man in a crumpled suit goes into the stand. His name is Mr. Daniels, and he manages rental properties in Flagstaff. His hands tremble as he takes the oath. The prosecutor approaches. Mr. Daniels, can you tell the court about how you met the Brown family? Daniels clears his throat. Yes. In 2019, one of Mr. Brown's wives, Janelle Brown, rented from me. She was clear about being part of a plural family. Everything seemed fine at first. Rent was paid on time, but then things changed. The prosecutor leans in. What changed? Daniel's voice becomes tough. The payments ceased. 3 months passed without rent. When I finally addressed her, she burst out crying. She claimed that she no longer had access to the family account. She said Kody was in charge of everything and he refused to give her the money. A ripple of whispers moves through the gallery. The prosecutor holds up a hand for quiet. And what transpired next? Daniels breathes deeply. I waited more than I should have. She was raising children, she was in a bind, but sooner or later, I had no other option. I had to initiate eviction proceedings. Gasps ring out in the room. Christine shakes her head, crying. Janelle looks down at the table with shame. The prosecutor's tone is crisp. So, one home was buying up property and cars, and another was being evicted. Daniels nods solemnly. Yes, and the worst of it. When finally during discovery for this case, I laid eyes on the bank records, I saw that the money was there. He simply decided not to pay it to her. The jury glares at Kody, their faces stern. Then, a crisply dressed woman gets on the witness stand. Miss Alvarez, a manager at a local bank. Her face is serene, yet her eyes are icy. Miss Alvarez, the prosecutor continues, was your bank involved in any of the Brown family accounts? Yes, she answers. Several joint accounts and individual accounts and Kody Brown's name. And did you see anything unusual? She opens a folder. Yes. In 2020, we started getting overdraft notices from accounts linked with Christine and Meri Brown, while big deposits were being made into an account which only Mr. Brown and Robyn Brown had access to. When Christine tried applying for a loan, she was rejected due to lack of funds and irregular account history. But we could see the bigger family ink.